Spoiler warning. Consume at your own risk. Supposedly taking place between episodes 22 and 23 of the series, Cowboy Bebop Knocking on Heaven's Door follows about the same format as a regular episode. The crew of the Bebop tries to fulfill a bounty, but the situation gets complicated, and those complications fill out the story of the rest of the episode, or movie. In this case, they're dealing with a terrorist plot to expose an entire city to death nanobots caused by an ex-military nutjob that can't tell dreams from reality. It's Halloween, they're in Mars, they're trying to stop him. For those of you who don't know our favorite band of legal bounty hunter space cowboys, that would be Spike Spiegel, our laid-back, keen-eyed main character and former Crime Syndicate member, Jet Black, I still can't believe that's his real name, the oldest member of the crew, who's a bonsai tree enthusiast, former cop, and the owner of the Bebop, Faye Valentine, the outspoken femme fatale who's on the run from the bounty hunters, because she may or may not have a little bit of a gambling debt, Ed, short for I'm not saying that, their bubbly and somewhat esoteric computer genius, whose methods tend to stray a little goofy, and Ein, their artificially enhanced corgi, who is the smartest one on the ship. Now there are also three big antagonists in the movie. Vincent Volat, who, the antagonist who we're really focused on, whose ex-Mars Special Forces has a vaccine in his blood to the aforementioned death nanobots, and can't tell dreams from reality / has dissociative amnesia. Lee Sampson is his partner, who is a hacker turned terrorist obsessed with games from the 90s, and Cheris Medical, a company that the Mars military uses as a front to do questionable experiments. There are two more notable characters. Rashid, who's ostensibly the guy who developed the nanobots for Cheris Medical and then went into hiding. He's also our exposition machine for Spike. He takes him on a wild goose chase through the Moroccan bazaar, and I unironically love him. Then there's Electra, who is from the same special forces as Vincent and was in love with him, but now works for Cheris Medical. She's also used as a counterpoint / potential love interest for Spike. It's a little bit of a mess. Our inciting incident links all of these characters together one way or another. Spike and Jet and the rest of the crew are on the Bebop, they're making their way into the Mars city where the movie is set, and they're following Faye. Faye is tracking down a bounty on Lee, who made a purchase of a truck, which is what she's after now. She put a tracker on his credit card. This means she's just in time to see the truck, which belonged to Cheris Medical, pull over and Vincent get out instead of Lee, which gives her a front row seat when the thing explodes. The explosion sends out nanobots, and hundreds of people are killed or injured by the blast, or get infected by the nanobots and die from that. The police don't know what's really going on, and the Mars government puts out a bounty of 300 million wulong for the perpetrator of the attack. It sets up the mystery-centered first half of the movie and establishes the motives of all the main characters. The Bebop crew wants the bounty, Vincent and Lee want to kill everyone at Halloween, and Cheris Medical wants to find Vincent. What the movie does a really good job with is how effectively it does characterization. For instance, in the first action sequence of the movie, Jet and Spike are collecting a bounty on a gang of guys trying to rob a convenience store. You have Jet being careful and methodical about casing the building and the situation, coming in through the ceiling like he's doing a raid and subduing the perps by the book, classic of an ex-cop. Meanwhile, Spike is doing his whole laid-back zen thing, just walking into the middle of the situation wearing headphones, and then kicking people in the face without giving them a second to breathe. When an unexpected extra member of the gang takes an old lady hostage, Jet gives up his gun to save her, but Spike has a standoff with the guy, saying that they're bounty hunters, not cops. He still saves the old lady, but the course of action was very risky. The whole sequence contrasts them really well and catches you up on their dynamic if you haven't watched the series. Similarly, Lee and Vincent are succinctly characterized while being stopped at a police checkpoint following their terrorist attack. Lee is talking about how they don't make games like they used to in the 90s as the car comes to a stop. When the cop gets up to the window, Vincent just shoots the officer without even looking at him. Lee watches him with complete disinterest, only noting the fact that he died in the game. These two don't care for human life as we know it, and they are not meant to be empathized with. Later in the movie, while they're dealing with a mystery, each of the Bebop crew gets a chance to use their particular strengths. Jet uses his old police connections to learn the truck's origin, Spike uses his people skills to do old-fashioned groundwork, and comes up with a sample of the nanobots. Ed tracks down Vincent's ID online, Faye finds Lee by tracking his credit card, and while he ends up escaping, she does bring back his hat, which lets Ein track him down to his and Vincent's hideout using his scent. That last sequence is one of my favorites, not because it does any narrative heavy lifting, but because Ein is just leading Ed through the city as she's dressed up as a trick-or-treater with no shoes, a cape, and a pumpkin on her head. The movie doesn't really do anything new with Spike's character. just kind of speedruns his development from the show, but it does drive home the fact that he is a morally gray character. He isn't a hero, at least not in the conventional sense. He's a cowboy in space. He confronts Vincent at the climax of the movie not because he wants to stop him, but because he knows that Vincent is waiting for an audience and he wants revenge for getting his butt kicked earlier in the movie. He even lets Vincent blow up the Death Nanobot-filled balloons that were set up the entire length of the parade taking place below them. Even in the first fight with the robbery, he tells the hostage that he and Jet aren't police, they're bounty hunters. It's not his job to save people, it's his job to catch bounties. He's still a good person, though, even if he isn't a hero. He saves a lady that was taken hostage, just shooting the guy the second the gun moves away from her head, and he saves the entire city with the help of his friends. He's not a hero, just a man, but he'll do what he can. He and Vincent are set up almost as negatives of each other. Both are metaphorical dead men. Both worked for violent organizations, though one was a crime syndicate and one was special forces. Both organizations didn't care for them in any particular way, shape, or form. Vincent can't remember his past and doesn't have a future thanks to the Mars government, and Spike doesn't have a future because he can't let go of the past. Elektra is then set up as Spike's mirror image. They're both hyper-competent combatants, they have complicated pasts, and they've both lost someone they care about. There was even a shot of them having a heart-to-heart in neighboring jail cells where they're literally mirror images of each other on either side of the wall dividing them. Same pose, same bed placement by the wall, and they're both sitting on the floor as they talk. Other than characterization, the action sequences were also very well done. When Elektra and Spike first meet, they engage in a fight sequence that shows up everywhere on social media. But the fight feels very grounded in both reality and good sense. Like when Elektra gets back up, Spike immediately gets out of there. Or when Spike seems like he's escaped on a cleaning truck that hasn't left the Charius compound's grounds yet, Elektra just calls for the gate to be closed and for more backup. Don't know if the overabundance of guards and automatic weapons was overkill for a front, but Spike still ends up escaping since he's able to run up the truck and jump over the gate to freedom. Similarly, after infiltrating Charius and encountering Elektra, Spike follows her and has a standoff and a gunfight with Vincent on a train. It's well done, the fight moving up the train and Spike seeming to have an upper hand early on, but eventually Vincent overpowers him and instead has a standoff with Elektra. Poor Spike is, meanwhile, just being dangled out of a train window, and they're fairly high up above a river. Vincent subverts the come back to me trope surrounding amnesia and mind control by completely not acknowledging Elektra's first and only real appeal to remember her, and straight up trying to blow her up. That sequence is echoed in the finale when Spike tracks Vincent down to the Tokyo Tower-looking structure right above the heart of the parade. This fight scene between the two of them felt really fluid and very realistic. It had some of the best fight choreography I've seen, animated movie or no, and even used some camera angles like you would see in a live-action film. But after Vincent blows up all the balloons in the parade, Spike gets overpowered again as he's being infected by the nanobots. Then, Elektra has the same standoff with Vincent as she did on the train, but this time, she's prepared to die with him. Like, they're both pointing guns at each other, they're both going to pull the trigger, but as she does, he doesn't. He remembered her at the very last second, saying that he's glad he saw her again, and that her love was his only true reality. Which is kinda cliche, but it's connected to the theme, so fine. There was also a really good dogfight action sequence that looked like something straight out of Top Gun or something, to the point where it was impossible to find stills that accurately captured what it did visually, but it also showcased the ingenuity Spike has and how far the Mars military was willing to go. It also grounded his swordfish and forced him to take a taxi to the climax, which is hilarious. However, the sequence does help send the message the movie has about mistrusting large institutions, since the military set up this front company to do illegal experiments. Then they're shown as not caring about protecting people, just not letting it leak that they're the ones responsible for the nanobots, to the point that they don't mass-produce the vaccine to the nanobots when they can, and get into a dogfight with Spike within a populated area just to scrub him of information. Like, they showed no hesitation firing ordnance into occupied high-rise buildings. The main theme, however, is a little bit more obscured and existentialist, like that of the main series. It's really only centered on Vincent, the man with no past or future. The questions around him about what really is reality and what is a dream, and where the line is between sanity and insanity are there, but it's not clear and neither are the answers. Beyond his near throwaway line that Elektra is his reality, it's really that a man who can't recognize the line between sanity and insanity is bound for tragedy. which may be the answer they intended or it may not be. Though their "Are you living in the real world?" card makes it very clear what the question was. Overall, it did a really good job with the characters, the animation was really good, and the plot was a solid action movie plot enhanced by a futuristic setting and a healthy dose of mystery. Besides the action sequences, the movie also has a few that are just downright hilarious. Like when Jet has to get a bunch of planes to crop dust the city with the vaccine. All they can get are a bunch of old men in even older craft, ranging from early single-manned spacecraft to World War aeroplanes. It isn't until after they all get up in the air that the guy running the airfield is surprised that these museum pieces can fly. No sooner does that come out of his mouth than a few of them start falling out of the sky. Jet just looks so done by this point that I can't help but love it. It's a great scene and a great movie. You should watch it, but there are a few things that I'd change. First of all, being the setting. The movie is set on Mars, but other than a few scenes at the beginning and the end, and in the background of the dogfight sequence, we don't really see that. It makes the movie feel like it's only technically set on Mars. Most of the movie is spent in a retextured modern-era city, though the detail in the city itself is very well done with the different languages on the signs, and the hover cars in the back being beat up from accidents. The world really feels lived in, and the added emphasis on Middle Eastern elements serves to set it apart from the bulk of the main series, but it misses the opportunity that it has with being set on Mars. It also could be helped to have aged better. Like, Elektra being introduced wearing a burqa during Spike's run through the bazaar is fine. Maybe she's Middle Eastern, maybe she's just doing her job and that was their best disguise, whatever. But Faye did not need to get abused the way she did. Like, she gets exposed to the nanobots when she just wanders into Vincent and Lee's hideout, and Vincent gives her immunity in, like, possibly the worst way he could have. He sucks blood out of his bullet wound in his hand and then just mouth-to-mouth baby birds it into her. Like, there is no reason for him to have done that. Like, I get that he's crazy and unstable, but dude could have just squeezed his wounded hand while holding her mouth open, and he still would have given her the immunity and still would have been showcased as bonkers. And then he just takes a knife to the one button holding her top together. Like, seriously, man had no reason. The big thing I'd fix, however, would be that the movie relegates most of the Bebop crew to supporting character roles. Yes, they do all get information in their own way early in the movie. Yes, they each have their own roles in the finale, with Faye getting the weather station to make it rain on the parade to help spread the vaccine, and Jet getting the museum pieces up in the air to spread the vaccine. However, they spend most of the middle portion of the movie off-screen, either having been captured or just waiting for everyone else sitting on the ship. And that's not even commenting on Ed and Ain's lack of screen time, outside of their tracking down Lee and Ed being everyone's girl in the chair. I know that the crew is set up to not really be dependent on each other, but this is set late in the show and thus late in the characterizations. They should care about each other. It would have been so easy to just have Jet get frustrated the first time he gets tired of waiting on everyone and turn and ask Ed if she knew where Faye went. Cause Ed did! Ed found the hideout for Faye. She just wasn't there when she got captured. She could have taken Jet there and helped Faye out, or at least make it so that she doesn't have to pull a knife out of a dead body to escape. And then afterwards they all could have just covered for Spike as he and Elektra escaped from prison. Like, that would have been a much more equitable division of on-screen agency. It would not have been that hard, I feel like. But as it is, all in all, the movie was good. It's already a bit of a cult classic in the anime community, as I understand it, up there with Akira and Ghost in the Shell. Honestly, if it was re-released today or brought back to the movie theaters like the Studio Ghibli movies are, I'm sure it would find a surprising amount of success. It didn't perform the best when it first came out, but given the number of terrorist attacks in the movie and a Middle Eastern character making a biological weapon, coupled with what happened in the world between its Japanese and American releases, I can kinda see why it, may have just hit a little too close to home for the majority of American audiences. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.